Welcome back, True Seeker. It is December 14th, 2025. It is the anniversary of George Washington's passing, with Francis Ignatius Neil at his side, likely who slipped him the arsenic. Of course, that part's left out of the history book. 13 years ago today, it was, what's that town called in Connecticut? The school, Sandy something. When I think of sand, I think of beaches. And here we are 13 years later at Bondi Beach in Australia. And I'm going to put out the speculation that perhaps this event was planned on May 21st, and we'll get to why May 21st. You're going to see just how much sense it makes if you pay attention, why this event that you're reading about today was likely planned and agreed to and ready for print on May 21st. Okay? If you think that sounds crazy, it's because you don't know what's going on in the world. And you're going to understand why May 21st very, very soon. And you're going to understand a very recurring pattern that goes on all throughout history, a pattern that's been used to dupe all of us. And I would say further enslave all of us. We've all lost rights and liberties. Most of us in the world are now living under a police surveillance state where literally everything is tracked. Again, here in the United States, part of this British Empire, no doubt about it. A lot of people don't see that. But yeah, just like Australia, the United States, the sun never sets on Britain. We're all speaking English. We all got similar flags. The same rituals are going on in all of our countries. If you're tuning into my channel for the first time and you're down under, shout out to the people in down under. My last book, the most copies sent internationally were to Australia. A lot of people got my book out in Australia, but the last time I covered a mass shooting in Australia, I showed how it was synced up with their rugby league, and we called the rugby future correctly off of that information. I didn't do that with this. I didn't look in the sports, but it's just very obvious what they've done here. And the sad thing is that a lot of people, they'll just turn off the video once I get into this because their mind is just programmed to reject the information that I'm about to share. And it's too bad because this information shows you what's actually going on. And it's part of the reason the cabal operates the way they do, because they know they've programmed the populace to reject information exactly like this, even though it's truly undeniable. And you know what? Before we even just jump into Bondi Beach, let's just start with what's also in the headlines right here in the U.S. That's just a lot simpler decode, and there's probably a lot more to this. But last night in the U.S., we had our typically scheduled Saturday shooting. There's one every Saturday, and I've gotten into why that is. But notice, we had a shooting in Providence, Rhode Island last night in the U.S. That was December 13th. And that's the 347th day of the year. And you can see that in this Kabbalistic system of coding numbers into words, when you run the alphabetic order forwards, Providence, Rhode Island equals 220. It happened on the 220th day of the Pope being in office, the first American Pope. Remember, he's from Chicago, the 312. The last Pope died on the 312th day of Trump's age. Now these stories out of Chicago, from Charlie Kirk to Nick Fuentes. Anyway, this system of coding numbers into words is very simple. It's the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, up to Z is 26. And the alphabetic order in reverse. Z is 1, back to A is 26. Providence, Rhode Island, 347 when you run it in reverse on the 347th day of the year, a mass shooting at a Ivy League school in Providence, Rhode Island. Remember, the word Pope in the most simple cipher equals 52. We're on a 52-week calendar given to us by the Jesuit priest Christopher Clavius. Pope 52, a 52-week calendar for the Pope. Okay? So that was last night. This is today in Australia on the anniversary of Sandy. What was it called again? But doesn't sand remind you of beaches now that we're at Bondi Beach again? Let's go through all this. The 11 killed, right? This 11 number all the time. These are numerological rituals. Numerology. Again, the practice of coding numbers into words is traditionally Jewish numerology. And funny enough, in this system, let's go over what the 4 base ciphers are real quick, too. There's the alphabetic order, the reverse alphabetic order, and the alphabetic order with numerology. you can see that JEW equates to 11, right? So Jews were targeted, and they're going to tell you 11 dead. A lot of 11s in big stories that have changed the world, like what happened in September in the 11th state, New York, after Flight AA-11 that began the destruction that took down the towers that looked like an 11 that were 110 stories tall, 110. And then in 2011, they finally got the culprit, bin Laden. And don't forget, it happened 11 years to the day of Papa Bush, George H.W. Bush, giving his speech about a new world order, a world freer of terror. September 11th, 1990, who was the 11th director of the CIA. And then don't forget when they declared the pandemic on March 11th, the anniversary of the Tribute in Light, the big purple light beams that were supposed to be the World Trade Centers. And if you haven't read my last book, Number Games, you can see how those events are directly coordinated with each other, those massive events that reshaped the world. And one started a war on terror, the other started a war on germs that all resulted in a war on our rights and liberties across the world. But yeah, 11, okay? And notice how Hanukkah and Australia overlap in this system. And we'll get to how it's 30 days after Charles' birthday, who's the monarch in Australia. But Hanukkah in Australia, 30 and 141. And remember, I asked, was this planned on May 21st, which is the 141st day of the year? We're going to see what happened on May 21st, why this event very well might have been planned that day. So, Hanukkah, Australia, they got this overlap. It's the first day of Hanukkah, May 21st. Well, this year, that was the day that the World Jewish Congress ended, okay, on the 141st day of the year. May 21st, 141st day. This is the biggest tragedy for the Jewish people of the year 2025, and realize out of these stories, we see how laws change across the world. In some parts, you now go to prison for questioning history. You know, I don't think any laws have, I don't think there's any laws out there about you might go to prison if you question the Armenian genocide or what happened to the Native Americans. You know, if you go out on the streets of America and you say, man, the natives weren't genocided, nobody's throwing you in a prison cell. Are you catching the gist of what I'm saying here? And understand, I had to get up at 4:30 a.m., so I'm not fully rested here. Not that I've been fully rested for over a year since we have our baby's almost 13 months. But anyway, even though we're half asleep, we can still figure this out. So now here's where it starts to get real interesting. From that May 21st date to today, December 14th, is 207 days. And understand, this is a very special number. This is a very special number to these same Jesuits who gave us the calendar and the English language as we know it. They're responsible for standardizing it with the agreed to spellings we have today at the end of the 16th century, the same moment in history when they implemented the calendar, and they've been unfolding these rituals across the globe ever since. But notice the phrase Jewish community is 207. Notice Bondi Beach is 207. We're going to take this back to, well, in a moment, we're going to take it back to George Washington's death. Maybe I should have put up here further, but just to understand the history of this number, the Jesuit priest, Jean-Joseph Marie Amiot of France, where the Jesuits come from, his name is 207, and he's responsible for the text Art of War. I know it's credited to Sun Tzu. Remember, the Jesuit order's logo is the sun, and the Jesuits have been in China and the Far East since the 16th century. But there's no proof a Sun Tzu ever existed. There is proof that Jean-Joseph Marie Amiot existed, and he's responsible for the spread of the text Art of War. And notice how Art of War also overlaps with Australia. Oh, shoot. I made a typo there. Well, disregard that. But anyway, Bondi Beach also has this 54 like Jesuit order. Bondi Beach, 54 like Jesuit order. Remember, their headquarters is the Church of the Jesuit, Building 54. Talk about this number all the time with the high Jesuit ritual. They're blaming this on the prime minister for not cracking down on the rising anti-Semitism in Australia. And of course, that's going on all across the earth, right? You got these puppets out here on the world stage like Nick Fuentes, who is a proud Catholic. Again, everything about Nick Fuentes is completely contrived. But they're doing all of this intentionally with characters like Nick Fuentes and the Tommy Robinsons so that they can crack down. They have their promoted characters to bring about the necessary chaos they need so they can unfold a story like this and Maybe later today that we'll be hearing this was a down under Groyper or something like that, or somebody who marched with Tommy Robinson. They do all of this on purpose because they have to give you the narrative for what they're going to do. But notice, it's 41 weeks after Mr. Albanese's birthday. And how long did the Jesuit suppression last in history? It lasted 41 years. And for the record, USA's 41, and the USA was formed in that time. And 41's the 13th prime. And of course, it's 13 years since SH, that other Sandy thing, which reminds you of the beach today. But on this day in history, George Washington also died, and he was, again, he became the first recognized president the same year that Georgetown, the U.S.'s first Jesuit university, was established, 1789. And by the way, out here in the United States, today in Washington State, named after George Washington, we just had massive flooding around the Seattle area. 6 rivers flooded. And then the same time that happened, they pulled Phillip Rivers out of retirement so that he can start as the quarterback in Seattle today, 6 days after his birthday. Not to mention he just turned 44, which is quite old for the NFL, when Rivers equals 44. And so does Seattle. And the flooding happened 44 days after Bill Gates' birthday. Mr. Climate Change, who's from the Seattle area. Anyway, if I'm not mistaken, the Colts are 4-4 at the Seahawks all time as well. Go figure. But yeah, Francis Ignatius Neal is who was at the side of George Washington when he died unexpectedly. The Jesuit priest who repopularized Jesuitism in America after its suppression. Isn't that neat? And you know, just a couple other things about Francis Neal. He ended up dying in history 201 days from his birthday. The Jesuit order equals 201, like Order of Illuminati equals 201. Remember, it was the Jesuit priest Adam Weishaupt who founded the Illuminati. It's kind of like how State of Israel equals 201, and David Ben Gurion, the first prime minister, died 201 days after the establishment of Israel, or the 201 days after the anniversary of the establishment of Israel. Just like how Adam Weishaupt died 201 days after the establishment anniversary of the Illuminati. Remember how when SH happened on this day 13 years ago, it was compared to the Dune Blaine massacre, which got gun rights taken away in the UK. Those events happened 201 months apart. And don't forget, before SH happened in 2012, the big story was the shooting at the Batman premiere in Aurora, Colorado. That was on July 20th, 207, 20/7, the 201st day of the nation's age. And don't forget that Skull and Bones equals 201, and the shooting was at the Batman premiere. And in the Batman series, in the 33rd episode, it's revealed that Batman's grandfather created Skull and Bones at Yale. And then Skull and Bones is in New Haven, Connecticut, not far from that sandy town in Connecticut. But 201 days. Go back to the Batman premiere in the Gotham skyline for the first time ever. They had the big glowing sign that said Aurora, like the shooting was Aurora, Colorado. And that year they changed the Batman map, the Gotham City map, for the first time since the cartoon had come out decades earlier. They changed the neighborhood from South Hinckley to Sandy Hook. And the thing about Sandy Hook is over here in the U.S., we lost First Amendment rights because a lot of us were censored for pointing out things like that. I lost 5 years of hard work from the time it happened up until 2017 after the chump took office for the first time. They finally, I suffered a million suspensions in that period on social media, but in 2017, just all the content wiped out, and most of it was for things we talked about with SH 5 years earlier. Once the chump came into office, a lot of people think he's some great savior. No, he's just another Jesuit puppet. Don't forget how he pushed his ex-wife down the stairs and she died exactly 60 weeks into the first ever Jesuit Nation year. And then he buried her on the 201st day of the year, July 20th, 207. That's also the anniversary of the moon landing. Neil Alden Armstrong, 201, July 20th, the 201st day of the year. A bunch of SS scientists were responsible for that achievement who came over to the U.S. on the 201st day of the year, July 20th, 1945. The same SS that was modeled after the Jesuits. The New York Times just a few years ago put out the story about how, the Pope knew all along that, what was going on there with Small Mustache Man. Not to mention Small Mustache Man, his birth certificate says Adolphus Hitler, which equals 201. Wonder if that's some kind of coincidence. The guy who's blamed for the Reichstag fire, his name equals 201. September 11th, 2 towers became 0 before they became 1. Again, it's the same thing all throughout history once you recognize what's going on. And it's these people. It's the same people that the founders warned about. Jefferson and Adams warned about the Jesuits ruining the country if they came out of suppression and subverting it. They both happen to die together on the same day, July 4th, 1826. Monroe, who gave similar warnings, dies 1,826 days later on July 4th, 1826. Lincoln blamed the American Civil War on the Jesuits. Confederate equals 201. On and on and on and on and on. The Confederate statue comes down after the George Perry Floyd riots. George Perry Floyd 201 compared to a Gematria's killing in Paris, France on the 201st day of the year, 201 weeks earlier. But again, the Albert Pike statue comes down in D.C., the only Confederate statue. And then 201 days later, January 6th, the Confederate flag flies. On and on and on and on and on up to today. Nonstop, same shit. But yeah, again, on this day, George Washington dies suspiciously with the most prominent Jesuit priest in the nation at his side, whose name is 207. And again, I just want to remind you today, here we are at Bondi Beach 207, where the Jewish community 207 is under attack 207 days after the biggest Jewish event in the world for the year occurred and ended on the 141st day of the year. And now here we are on Hanukkah in Australia. Okay? And this is what goes on year after year. And remember, the Jesuits, the original members, several were Jews who converted to Catholicism and no doubt in part brought this practice of Cabala into the church. But understood, Cabala was already in the church as well because the Templars brought back the knowledge after the Crusades. And that's why right in the middle of the Jesuit Order's logo is the Templar cross. And again, if you've ever watched that show Nightfall, it's full of all kinds of gems. But doesn't the show begin with the Catholic Templars protecting the Jews? There's always been this relationship. And it begins in France, where the Templars were burned at the stake, where eventually the Jesuits came into existence. But yeah, Hanukkah, the perfect sync with the World Jewish Congress, the perfect sync with history, Art of War. If you've never read Art of War, I'd encourage you to read Art of War. Here, let me get it right. Is it chapter 9, the 11 situations, or is it chapter 11, the 9 situations? I always get it dyslexic. Yeah, it's the 9 situations, which is chapter 11 in Art of War. And just so you guys know, that chapter is 68 paragraphs long, which matters because in 1968, 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. World Trade Center construction began in New York. 2001, A Space Odyssey came out, and a bunch of other things related to that fateful day that was another big 11. And remember who had just bought the book, or not the book. Sorry, that's not getting enough sleep talking. Don't forget who had just bought in the World Trade Centers, He's part of the community. You know what I'm saying? He just bought in it for the first time. The Port Authority sold it to a person, and he pulled out a big old expensive insurance policy in case anything happened to the towers, and he made a fortune off of it. And, he was part of the community. Also, if you missed what happened to us when we were in New York City, but YouTube took down my whole channel from going from Seattle to New York, city to city, bringing the truth seekers together. And now, look, we can't even get any videos. Imagine if I promoted the Seattle to New York tour now. We'd have nobody out there because nobody even gets a notification for this channel. But it was just the weirdest thing. When we were out there speaking on September 11th, 2022 about what really went down, massive police presence showed up. They told us that we could not come on the grounds. And then what was weird is the community, if you know what I'm saying, just was like standing with the police, and they were literally like posing with the police, and a photo shoot broke out. And they were leaning on police cars right in front of us. It was just the weirdest thing. It was like, what in the hell is going on? We now have a community photo shoot using the police cars and the police officers as props right in front of us while we're being told to stand back or things will happen to us. It was the weirdest thing. And again, I was speaking about the Jesuits, not the community, but of course there is a connection there, like I just said. Yeah, this is how they operate day in and day out, and people don't want to talk about it. And again, look into the Jesuits, you guys. The headquarters is the Church of the Jesuit, Building 54. John Carroll equals 54. They established their first Jesuit university here. Same year George Washington became president, while John Carroll was 54 years old. Oh yeah, by the way, I meant to remind you about Philip Rivers starting today in Washington State. Again, 6 days after his birthday, after 6 rivers just flooded in the Seattle area. It's 1,789 days since Philip Rivers retired, like the year Georgetown was established and George Washington became the president. Sure, it's just a coincidence. Not to mention he retired on 20/1, the 20th of January, which is also the 201st day of the U.S.'s age, and that's why it was moved to Inauguration Day in the Jesuit stronghold that's Washington, D.C., where the capital used to not be. But yeah, here, just about December 14th, too. You see how when you spell it out, it equals 187 like George Washington? Oh, shit. And I forgot to spell out one other thing. 12/14. A way you could say the date. It's got the 191, 187 like Society of Jesus. 191, 187. 191's the 43rd prime. RIP's 43. Killing's 43. Masonics 43. Again, the Jesuits are the daddies of modern Freemasonry. DC is 4-3 using the alphabetic order. That word JEW, the 11 dead, but also the 43. So yeah, I forgot to put 12/14 up there, but notice, Society of Jesus, the guy who modeled the order after him, Washington, D.C. Again, the Jesuits got their fingerprints on all this stuff all throughout history. This is the day that George Washington died, with the Jesuit priest at his side. And speaking of the Jesuits, their current leader is Arturo Sosa. Today is his 33rd day of his age. Remember, he turned 77, like United States equals 77, like the Washington, D.C.'s on the 77th meridian. Our longest government shutdown ever ended on his 77th birthday. And there were 222 votes to reopen the government. Superior General 222. What's the girl that got killed on 2/22 who was 22 years old that supposedly got Trump reelected? What's her name again? Her name equals 222 as well. And her supposed killer from Venezuela, where the Superior General's from, where we're seizing oil tankers and blowing up boats by the numbers. Remember, her supposed killer said he didn't want a trial on the Superior General's birthday a year earlier. Can't think of the girl's name right now, but I know it's 222. Killed on February 22nd at age 22. Jesuits, the plural, 22. You know what I mean? Just another ritual, another master number ritual. 11, the master number. 22, the master builder number. Build a campaign all around it. Get the illegals out of here. Look what they did. I don't think they did anything. I think they just made up another story to sell us another story, to sell us another agenda. But yeah, anyway, it's the 33rd day of the Superior General's age. Bondi Beach is on the 33rd parallel. And we see this one all the time in these shootings too, don't we? Masonry, police, federal, secrecy, order. Always just the same number over and over across the world. On the 33rd day of the Superior General's age, on the 33rd parallel south, the police with the Masonic checkerboard all over their vehicles and uniforms, just like in London, divided into 33 neighborhood areas where modern Freemasonry's from. You know what I mean? Just the same thing over and over. Those nice Masonic stripes. Again, if you haven't seen the movie Filth, I'd encourage you to check it out. It's about Masonic cops killing people and then solving their own murders. Masterpiece. How about the royal family? Completely Masonic. Everything they do by the numbers. King Charles being the monarch there in Australia. It's 30 days after his birthday. They got him all synced up with Charlie Kirk, too. Charles and Hanukkah. Perfect overlap, forwards and backwards. For the record, Jesuit and Freemason both equal 42 also. Funny how those numbers just come together. The meaning of life. Isn't it Deep Thought in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that says 42 is the meaning of life? Deep Thought is the name of that computer. Deep thought. Most people aren't capable. It's all shallow. What are you talking about, Cabala numbers, man? I don't need to know this. I already knew it was all a bunch of lies. Why would I want to further my knowledge base? I don't have deep thoughts. The same people that say those kind of things, and they're out voting in the next rig selection, getting mad over the next rig sports game. You try to show them, I already know, man. Like, bruh, I already know. Like, the Bondi Beach shooting was entirely foreseeable. Yeah, it was. It was probably planned on May 21st. It was probably signed off on that day. Probably all agreed to. Probably had all the right actors in place. From watching the news just a little bit, I saw this morning. It just reminded me of all the other shit. Lady come on with her nice accent. Yeah, I saw one body, and I forget what her word was that she used for the police. I forgot that down under word she used for the police, but it made me laugh. I said, "Oh yeah," she looked shell shocked about that dead body she saw. The Forces Rescue Bomb Disposal Unit has been working at the scene. Don't you love how these mass shooters always have IEDs on them? It's like signature. All these mass shooters, they always got the IEDs too that the authorities always recover before any of them explode. Just the same rinse and repeat story all across the world over and over. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more here if we get down into the nitty gritty of the exact location. I have to get my work done, though, that I actually got up early to do. It wasn't to do this. It was to finish up our sports decoding because we got to keep taking advantage of the world of rig sports. And a part of me is going, man, should I have even taken the time out of sports to do this? Because nobody appreciates this work, but people do appreciate the sports work. Yeah, if you want to join us, we will be going over rigged NFL Week 15. No doubt it's going to be another day full of Kobe Bryant tributes. They just can't stop paying tribute to Kobe. It's 113 days after his birthday anniversary. And it's funny what they got going on in those LA games because there's a 113 in both games today. Go figure. Go figure. The game between Philly and the Chargers the other week, we had it, 41 points. We knew it. The over-under was set at 40.5. That game was 106 days after Kobe Bryant Day in the 106th season. And Chargers scored 22 points in that game to win it 22-19. Eagles equals 22. And look up how many points the Chargers have for the season. They're right now at 298 for the year. That's how scripted all this stuff is. National Fixed League. What do they play for in the National Fixed League? Don't they play for the Lombardi Trophy? Lombardi was a Jesuit, died unexpectedly at Jesuit Georgetown. Again, that Jesuit Masonic alliance, it's more than your rigged news, your rigged elections, it's your rigged sports too, just like American football's credit to Walter Camp. Freemason. And by the way, if you don't think the Chargers are on 298 points right now after the Kobe tribute, you gotta love how for week 15 they market the game that has two big star 15s on each side. But and by the way, Phillip Rivers, who's playing, you guys, Phillip Rivers is from Alabama. Today's National Alabama Day. He wears number 17. Today's date numerology 17. There's 17 days left in the year. Keep in mind the word kill equals 17. And Phillip Rivers played the majority of his career in San Diego. And you know what else is funny? Hold on. Let me show you something about Phillip Rivers right here. Hold up. Do you know how many career losses Phillip Rivers is on right now? Because remember, the Chargers moved to LA right after Kobe retired. Phillip Rivers' career record as a starter, including playoffs. Get a load of this, you guys. He's on 113 losses, you guys. It's 113 days after Kobe Bryant's birthday anniversary. And I'm pretty sure Kobe's out there chilling somewhere. I don't think he really crashed in a helicopter on the 41st day of the Pope's age. Remember, they retired Kobe's jerseys the day after the Pope turned 81, like Kobe being Bryant equals 81. Like he scored that career high 81 in his 666 game. Kobe being Bryant, 81-54, just like Mark of the Beast. Remember, he died the Sunday before Super Bowl 54. He died for Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl in the Joe Montana Bowl. Joe Montana 54. It was between the two Joe Montana teams. He wore 16 for the Niners, 19 for the Chiefs. That was the 2019 season. Then the Chiefs beat the Niners again a few years later to become the first team to go back-to-back in 19 years, and that game went to OT 19 all. And McCole Hardman caught the game winner for his 19th touchdown. But hold up. I was going to show you that the Chargers are on 298 points, just like Los Angeles Chargers equals 298, like how we circled before the game. What in the F? Huh. This is interesting. So either the stats were wrong before the game, because that's what we used at the time. This is how we saw that they could score 22. It's before the Chargers played their last game, ESPN had them at 276 points. This just, okay. I'm almost tempted to go back and count all the scores of their games now. This is funny business, though. You can go back and watch our Patreon stream where we went over this live before the game. So this is some funny business because they scored 22 in the last game. So either they had a mistake on this and they were at 277, or they fudged it because they've been exposed, and we've been talking about this publicly way before today. Notice it now shows they're on 271 points against. That's also the 58th prime number, just for the record. Kobe Bryant's 58 in reverse, 41 forwards, 58's the 41st composite number, dead at 41. Dead on his 157th day of his age. And don't forget, he played in LA 41, and he played for the Los Angeles Lakers 58, and star equals 58. And of course, he was a star on the world stage. And King James won the finals that year, exactly 41 weeks after his birthday on Father-Daughter Day, after Kobe and his father died at 41 and 13. LA's 41 and 13, 41's the 13th prime. Jesuit suppression, 41 years. 41 weeks today after the prime minister's birthday, the 13th prime. 13 years ago, it was Sandy what? Now we're at Bondi Beach. Beaches are sandy. Anyway, I got to go do the football thing, but understand, it's all one big script, and sometimes you got to double check the stats ESPN's putting out because they get fishy. I'm annoyed about this. Even just a few days ago, it still said 298. So how did it become 299? ESPN. This is that George Orwell 1984 where the information, the Ministry of Truth, they're changing everything at all times. The internet's made it extra easy to do these kind of things. But whatever. Go back and check the Eagles. Here, I'll just show you right now. They're not going to rewrite the Eagles box scores from last year's playoffs, are they? In light of the Chargers just winning with 22, not to mention basketball equals 22, and it was a tribute to Kobe. Remember the playoffs last year? Eagles won with 40 on the 40th day of the year in tribute to 40 acres and a mule. That was Super Bowl 59. Slave is 59. 40 acres and a mule is 105. It was the 105th NFL season. These teams had also played on Lincoln's birthday, and the Eagles play in Lincoln Financial Field, and Lincoln freed the slaves. 40 acres and a mule is also 201. Don't forget that. But again, last year, the Chiefs lost with 22, picking up their 22nd postseason loss all time. Look at that. Look at the Eagles' playoff run last year. The Rams went down with 22. They beat the Packers with 22. 3 out of their 4 games had 22 in the score, and that's not really that common of a football game score. It's not that common, 22. 3 out of 4 games? So, yeah. Kobe's from Philly, died in L.A. He's like the Fresh Prince, except for the Fresh Prince is still breathing. But that other Will Smith isn't breathing. Remember, Will Smith for the Saints died the day that Will Smith was given the Best Actor Award at the MTV Movie Awards when the stage was gold and black, like the Saints colors. And Will Smith's latest movie was Focus, which is set in New Orleans and was about gambling and centered on football. Weird. Anyway, if you don't focus, you won't understand this knowledge. And I got to get back on the grind, you guys. Shout out to Dale with the Big 5 up early, and Leper Messiah as well. You guys are up. Well, you guys are. I think you guys are out on the east, so you're a little bit ahead of me, but you guys are still up early. All right, I do got to get back on the football grind, and I hope you guys appreciate this because taking this time to do this morning is going to allow less time for the thing that actually makes money. So it's like a financial sacrifice to do this. And that's why I keep saying, do I just need to stop with the news? Because nobody cares. I mean, this is a $1 billion decode showing you what's going on in the world, and nobody cares. Most morons will come here and say, oh, this is schizophrenia. This is what paranoid delusions look like. Like, no, what you sound like is a programmed tard. That's what you sound like. This is what they do every day, mocking your goy ass. That's what this is. And the fact that nobody wants to talk about it is because of a very low intellect, a lot of low intelligence. Yeah, that's a typo. I got to fix that one. But the rest of it isn't. The rest of it isn't. It's just history repeating itself. 187 homicide code. Oh, by the way, 187. We almost forgot. Let's close out right here. All of these stories are about dividing the people of the world, especially amongst religion. Remember, this whole code goes back to the Torah, which is 187 chapters. The Torah is the basis of the Abrahamic religions. You see that 56, 187 too. See that 38, like JEW, like death, like murder, like killing, like RIP, like how Murder by Numbers, the movie poster, has the 38 coded right on the front, like how the song Murder by Numbers by the Police, British band, came out in 83, and it's about how killing is as simple as ABC is 1, 2, 3. and it's the sport of the elected. But all right. Back to the sports grind. Have a good rest of your day, True Seeker. Thank you to everyone who hits the like and the share. Thank you to everyone who supports the Patreon. And until next time.